Mrs. Joann Eleanor Gilliam, 84, of Phoenix, Arizona, passed away on April 19, 2016. She was born on October 11, 1931, to William Cooper and Myrtle Peters in Flint, Michigan. Her natural abilities led her to pursue a variety of occupations. She was an evangelist, a missionary, but she also worked in accounting as well as a cosmetologist. Joann is survived by her daughter Brenda, 4 grandchildren, Faith, Brianna, Essence, and Destiny, and a host of nieces and nephews. She was preceded in death by her parents William and Myrtle Cooper, husband Glenn Gray Gilliam, grandson Dominique McLean, and 2 sisters Elizabeth Holly and Barbara Watson, and 2 brothers Leo and Wilbur Woodward. My early memories of her, she was always helping everybody, and she loved to work with people. So my whole life, to me, it just seemed like how some people got stray animals and brought them home. My mom found stray people, and everybody that she ended up bringing home became a part of the family. And so because of that, she became a mother to so many. And there were times where I was jealous, as a child, like, that's my mom, but as I got older and I started seeing the impact that it had on people, both her and my father, it just gave me a different outlook and a different perspective on life.
Close friends, like whatever they need, she'd always, if she had it, she'd give them to it. Like if she had money and they were like having trouble financially, she'd offer it to them, no matter what the amount was. Like if they needed it, she gave it to them.
Just by how dedicated she was to get up every Sunday morning and go to church, even though she was like, she needed assistance physically. You could tell, like, she never gave up on God.
When we were young, and if we got sick, because Mom worked, we'd go to church with Grandma and usually fall asleep on the pews, at least until we were old enough. And then Grandpa, he'd ask us, do you want to go to church or do you want to go to McDonald's? And of course we chose McDonald's, but Grandma, she was always there when we were sick, and we needed someone to take care of us.
Unlike them, if I fell asleep on the pew, I got popped. Then I had Sunday school, then there was Sunday morning service, then we went out to dinner, and then there was Sunday evening service, and then Wednesday Bible study, Friday evening service. I was churched. I got to a point where I used to get in the bed with my dad and like mold myself to his body and try and hide under the blanket and don't tell Mom I'm here. But, at the time, I didn't want to go. I was a kid. It's like, I don't even understand what they're talking about, this thine and thou art. It's not even English. I don't get it, And so, but now as I'm older, I appreciate, being brought up in the church, because there are things that have stuck with me.
She was she was religious. It was always, when we would have our talks, she always be talking about, well, God has a plan for you, and he made you a CNA for a reason, because he knew you was going to take care of me. He knew.
She said that when it comes down to it, if you believe in God, then that's all that matters. Like if you believe in Jesus Christ, we shouldn't like put people in categories, because we all believe that God and Jesus Christ is. And so now, because I went to a Catholic school, I went to church a couple of times, and while I'm not like strong, like I don't go to church. I don't like waking up in the morning. But I do believe in God, and I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe that we're here for a reason, and that when we die, we pass on to somewhere better.
Anything you needed, like my daughter said, if there was someone in need and she saw that they were in need, the first thing what do you need me to do? What is it that you need? How can I help you? Whether it's you need $1,000, I mean, random people, and sometimes I felt like people took my mother for granted or tried to take advantage of my mother. So when I start seeing stuff where people actually showed her appreciation and reading their cards and seeing the sentiment, in what they're stating, it's nice to see that. And she found that everywhere, and even at her funeral, just seeing and hearing a lot of the things that the people had to say about my mother, it made me feel really good, because it's not that she was being taken for granted. It's just that not everybody knows how to state things, and some people are more action than verbal, so it's just nice to see that people do care for her. She was a genuine person. She was a very good-hearted person.
And she was my special friend, and she was the type of person, and I wrote this song, oh, how I love Jesus, because he first loved me, because that's the type of person she was. And she told me how he changed her life. And she said, I know I've been changed. I started going to prayer in the morning times with her. I went for as long as I was there for, I'm going to say about 10, 15 years, went to prayer in the mornings with her. As a matter of fact, she was one of the ones that encouraged me in prayer. And she's been truly a blessing in my life.
Her way of servicing God, she incorporated into everyday moments that was very unique.
You know, she has always been one of those people that's always been out there helping people. You know, whether it's at church, whether it's the sick and shut-in, whether it's visiting people at nursing homes, whether it's helping somebody clean their house or getting groceries to make sure that their kids are okay, you know, or just giving people rides to and from church or wherever they may need to go. But that was always my mother's life. Her life was always helping others. She's never done anything for herself, you know, never. It's always been, you know, what's going to benefit everybody else around her, because she's always said she's blessed. She's lived a blessed life, you know. She couldn't ask for any more, you know. So what would that be for her, to keep her blessing to herself and not, you know, share it with others? So that's what she did, and she did that until she was 82 years old.
It was such a blessing to know her, and she was so inspiring. She was so good for the soul. Anything I needed to know, all I had to do was go to Sister Gilliam. Sister Gilliam was one of a kind. There's not going to be nobody else like Sister Gilliam.
They were stationed in Okinawa for a while, so we were in Japan. They were in Turkey, Germany. We've been to Thailand. We've been to the Philippines, Japan, China. My mother, on the way back from Saudi Arabia, wanted to go through Israel and Jordan. So we went to, because being that she's religious, we went to Jerusalem, and we went on a little tour. So, and I was actually found some of those pictures the other day from when we were out there. You know, we saw the place where Jesus was born, and we saw where he was crucified, and you know, that was a very you know, I don't want to say it was an emotional trip, because that was us coming back, but just for my mother, it was, because it was like, for her, this was her life, and this is, you know, and for her to finally reach that point, it was kind of like reaching the plateau for her. So it was a very endearing moment for her.
I will never forget our juggling and trying to hide things in order for you to take over to Saudi Arabia and hide, confiscate your Bibles, and we come back and we pack and find a new way to send you some more, send your books, and so that you can continue to praise God over there with your fellow Christian believers over there. And you know, I thank you for taking me to church with you as a little girl, and going to Pastor Stevens, and just helping me and guiding me through my spiritual journey.
On Sunday, when we had walked in, she just lit up and said, "I talked to your dad." And I said, "Oh boy," you know, I'm like, "Really? What'd you discuss?" She's like, "Well, we decided it's time." And I was like, "Time for what?" She's like, "Time for us to be together again." And I said, you know, my first inkling was like, "Mom, I don't want to have this conversation. You know, I don't want to talk about this." And she kind of laughed it off. "Well, I'm going to pack and I'm going to Detroit," you know. And Destiny's like, "Well, I'm coming with you. When we leaving?" But when I sat there, you know, she knew, because she had to have spoken to my dad. The way she lit up, I haven't seen my mother light up like that since my father passed away. So with me, that gave me comfort, knowing that, you know, he is there. He's been here this whole time, you know. And she had told me, when I talked to Jake, I'm gonna bless him out for leaving me. And when we came in, she was just smiling. She's like, "Well, we decided it's time."
It does bring me a lot of comfort knowing that she is up there with my grandpa and she's happy. And like, I just feel like ever since we moved into our house, I feel like I'm closer to her.
When I first went to prayer singing, I think it was back in 84, 85, and I met her, and she was always an encouragement. She always had a beautiful smile. She always had a laughter that everybody would remember it. And she was the type of person that she was always happy, always seemed to be content, no matter what was going on in her life. She was the type of person that she didn't seem to let too much get her down.
Very resilient, extremely strong, you know. She's the strongest person I know, because honestly, I've never seen my mother as much as I've seen the things that my mom has gone through, and knowing the things that she's gone through. I never saw my mother shed a tear until the day my father passed away, because my mother's motto was just smile, you know, fake it till you make it. You gotta smile, and you know, you're gonna keep on smiling until eventually you're gonna be okay. You know, you don't, you know, and one thing she always taught me, when you feel your worst, that's when you need to make a point to look your best, because you're already, your facial expression itself is already, you know, gonna give you away. So she's like, you don't just, when you're going through something, not do your hair and walk out the house looking a mess. That's when you make special effort to look your best, because, you know, you don't need everybody knowing what you're going through, because that's something internal with you that you're dealing with, and there's a reason for every.
Like, she just shows an example of, even though you've been through a lot, no matter what, you can still make your way towards happiness. And it's like, you don't meet a lot of people like that. Especially nowadays, you don't meet any type of people like that, mostly that use what they've gone through as an excuse and a reason to do better.
There's a lot of things, you know, from her past, you know, that she went through that a lot of people wouldn't understand, you know, and for me to know her as my mom and to know the things that she went through, you know, it's stuff that you see on Lifetime movies. And so she really didn't go, and that's stuff that she wanted to leave in the past. She wants to focus on the positive. Regardless of what mistakes she made, you know, she wasn't one of those people to knock you down. It was always, okay, well, what do you want to do about it? You know, where do we go from here? You know, how do we fix it? You know, and in my life, you know, me being a mom as a teenager, you know, my mom was there for me a lot, you know, and not once was it, oh, well, Brenda, you did this at this age. No, it was never anything like that. It's like, okay, this is what's happened, so this is what we got to do, and this is, you know, and this is what you need to do. So I didn't have the luxury that some of these kids have to, you know, when you're 17 and you have kids, your mom watches your kids. My mother was in Saudi Arabia, so everything that I had to do on my own. But because of what my parents instilled in me, I was able to. But financially, they made it easy for me because they were in another country. So I was living in the house here. So it was me and my kids. So they made sure I was good. I didn't have rent to pay. I didn't, you know, I worked to take care of my kids, and specifically to take care of my kids. You know, I didn't have to worry about food and shelter because my parents took care of that. You know, so like, I didn't raise my kids on my own. You know, I might have been the physical parent that was there, but my parents were always involved in the raising of my children. So my parents are a lot of the reason why my kids are the way that they are. Because, you know, people say, oh, well, you're a wonderful parent, you have great kids, but I didn't do it alone. You know, my kids wouldn't have, if it was me just by myself, there's no way my kids would have turned out the way they have, because even if my parents weren't in their lives the way they were, it's what my parents instilled in me. But my parents being here, and they were always active. If they weren't here physically, they were always involved in their lives somehow, you know. And then when my father finally retired, that's where it was just like, he was straight grandpa mode. You know, he was a beast as a grandpa.
Yeah.
He went beast mode on him, you know.
Every day.
And so, it's, you know, and they had that time with my dad because, like I said, my mother did her own thing. And so these past couple of years since we lost my dad, that gave us that time to have with my mom that we never would have had, because she is such an active person. One thing about my mother was she would see things, you know, and rather than telling me what she saw, she would prepare me for it. You know, for example, you know, I had a son that passed away. She knew this was going to happen. I had the dream, you know, because I'm the same way. But the difference is with me is when I have these dreams, it may not even be the person I'm dreaming about, but it's something, you know. And where my mother, she'll have it, she knows exactly what's going to happen. So rather than her telling you, you get prepared for this, she's preparing herself emotionally so she could be there for me, and she's preparing me for the transition. And you don't get it when you're going through it, but it's like as I look back on it, there's a lot of things that she was there, and there's a lot of situations, you know, during the hardest part of my life that my mom was there and helped me get through. That, you know, and it's like I couldn't have done it without her.
So you're doing her laugh all the time.
Let me hear it.
I can't.
That was her laugh. You knew when she laughed, everybody was like, she was contagious, and she couldn't help but to laugh with her laugh.
She was the type of person that always had a smile on her face. She was a joy to be around. She was very encouraging. You know, always saw that laugh, always saw a smile on her face.
Was her laughter, her ingenuity, and the fun times that I saw and enjoyed.
You would walk into the house and she would just have the biggest smile on her face. And like, she'd be like, what's on the rail for the lizard today? And like, you know me, I couldn't get it at first. I was like, what rail? What lizard? There's a lizard?
Grandma, I'm scared of lizards.
I was like, Grandma, I don't like lizards. There's a lizard in the house.
That's a figure of speech.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, I got you now, never mind. So there's not a lizard. And we would just like sit there. We wouldn't even have to talk about anything. We would just sit there and like in the room quietly, or like listen to music.
She'd be like, hi, Grandma. She'd be like, hi. And then we say, what's up? And sometimes she would be like, the sky, the roof. And then other times we would say, what's up? And we would answer with the sky. And then we would also say, other than the sky. And she'd be like, oh, nothing. Nothing at all. Just watching cartoons. And she loved Alvin and the Chipmunks. So that's what she always had playing.
How many times did she call you for her popsicles?
Oh, a lot.
Destiny,
a lot.
Faith,
Every time
Brianna.
Warren brought her a popsicle.
Can I have a popsicle?
She'd come in there, Grandma, you want a popsicle?
Can I have a Snickers? Like, okay, Grandma. I was like, what are you gonna eat first?
Oh yeah, she'd have the house phone in her bra too.
And the remote. And
Yeah.
the remote.
I remember I was like, Grandma, it's time to change you and bathe you. And she's like, okay. I started taking everything. I was like, Grandma, I found the remote. She's like, oh, I was looking for that. I was like, oh, okay. And then I found the other remote that nobody uses, but it was in there. She's like, oh, I just decided if we don't have one remote, we might as well have both of them. And then I grabbed something else. I was like, what else do you have in here? I don't know. Check. And I was like, Grandma, we found the house phone we've been looking for a week. She's like, I knew someone was ringing.
It always felt like a burden, but we were all like, Grandma, it's okay. It's just, it was cool. It was okay with us. Yeah, because she always made it entertaining.
And she was so cute. I used to watch her on the drive, you know, to and from church, and I would laugh because she was so tiny. So her head would barely sit, you know, she could barely see out the window, and then she'd just sit there with her hands folded in her lap. And it was just so adorable, and I'd start picking on her like, hey, old lady, do I need to get you a booster seat so you can see out the window? She was a professional student. She has so many certifications, and I used to laugh. I'm like, Mom, you've got all these degrees and certifications, and you don't work in any of the fields. Because with her, she always worked her schedule around my schedule. So she had whatever job that would allow her to be home when I was home. So I was never a quote-unquote latchkey kid. You know, there was times my mother worked at my school. So my mother would only work the hours that I was at school, and she was home the hours that I was at home. So, you know, looking back, I really started thinking about this. You know, my mother was always, you know, she was always there. Like I said, she worked at my school. So it's like, oh gosh, I gotta eat my lunch. My mom's here. You know, anybody want to hide this? I don't want to eat it because if my mom sees, I'm gonna get in trouble. You know, I gotta eat lunch. But she was a very good mom. She was a very active mother. She was involved in every aspect of everything. You know, when I was on a swim team, she was at all my swim meets and made sure I was at all my swim practices. And even when we moved here, you know, she kept me involved in different activities so I wasn't sitting idle at home from the time we got here. So she was a very hands-on mom. My mother and father, I can't say anything negative about their relationship. I've never seen them argue. I've never seen them fight. I mean, I've never seen my father say an ill word to my mother or the other way around. If they did have discussions, it was behind closed doors, because I've never seen anything negative. And they were best friends. They talked about everything. You know, my dad took care of her. She was spoiled. We were all spoiled, you know. My dad was the person, he made sure that, you know, when she got up in the morning, because he made sure her meds and her vitamins were all situated for her breakfast. She'd go off to church in the morning. He knew what time she was coming in, have her something to eat ready, you know, so she can go relax. And they had a wonderful, loving relationship. They traveled the world, you know, they grew up together. They were married, you know, for 55 years when my father passed. They got married in 1959, you know, so they were soulmates.
I can't really describe it.
She never wore pants.
No.
Always dresses and skirts.
She liked pants. She just never wore them. I don't know. She had like a unique style. There was some old, crazy looking clothes, and then there were some normal ones, and then there were some cool looking ones. So
he was very religious, so he would do things in the church. For example, she was talking about being a born-again Christian. And my dad had said, well, I want to be born again. And my mother said, well, you have been born again. Oh, really? Well, who bore me again? I've only been born once by Caroline Gillette. Who bore me again? And my mom was, oh, you know what? I'm not going to play with you. No, I'm serious. I want to know, you know, how do I get born again? And she's just, and I'm sitting there laughing. And so he's standing over her because she's so tiny. And she just thought he was so tall. He was all of 5'11". But, you know, she was supposed to be 5'3". I don't think that's what she actually was. But she was supposed to be 5'3", so Daddy just stand over her, and she was looking up at him. Oh, get away from me, Jake. I'm not scared of you. But why? I want you to be scared of me. Why aren't you scared of me? You know?
The last time we were in the hospital, I was up there trying to feed her chicken and stuff. She said, give me the strawberry shortcake. I was like, Grandma, you need to eat actual food first.
She eats her dessert first, because when she was in the rehab facility, when I would come, she was like, uh-oh, here come the police. And her little friends at the rehab would tell me if she ate breakfast or if she really ate lunch. And so when I come in, I'm getting my report. So it's like, nope, okay, you gotta take another bite of that. Nope, you can't have that until you eat that. And she's, oh, here come the police. I was the police first, and then Faith became the police. Faith, you mean you're the police. You don't give her candy after bedtime. So we got the little video monitor so she didn't have to yell for them, and they just have the little handheld and they could see her. And sometimes I just sit there and watch her on it, because it was just so, she was like a little baby. Because, you know, she went from being my mom to being my kid. And I would just sit there and watch her, and just watch her fiddle with stuff and get her little Snickers.
her bed.
And then I turn on the thing. What are you doing, old lady? I can see you. And she just start laughing. Everybody who meets her, though, you know, they become family to her. So we were going through some of her stuff, and we see some of these pictures of all these people we don't know, but you know, they genuinely care for my mother. You know, you could see it in the cards, and we are seeing birthday parties from, you know, that they threw for her out there. You know, and it's nice to know that it's nice.
And Joann, thank you for the grace and the fulfillment of encouraging Herman and us getting married. For the 30 plus years that we were together, you helped to fulfill a promise from my mom. Thank you. Thank you for the glory and the honor and the beauty and the joy and the laughter and the humor. And also for always trying to figure out a way to get around things. Thank you.
She has really been an encouragement to me. She's been a good friend. We've been friends. We was friends for years. And we didn't always see each other, but whenever we did, we will still remain friends. And she's going to greatly be missed.
To Brenda and all the girls, I love you. I love your mom, your dad. This is a hard goodbye, because you know how much and how close I was to Aunt Joann. And my journeys here, and all of her journeys. Just know that I love you, and you guys can always contact us back in Michigan. To Aunt Joann, I love you, I miss you, I thank you for all that you did for me, counseled me, loved me through the changes. I thank you for being there with me, with Lachey, because Mama and Daddy were already gone. So I thank God and I thank you for being there by my side with that, as long as with everything else. I thank you and Uncle Jake for the counsel and the help and the everything.
Honoring her by restoring my faithfulness in the Lord more, starting to go back to church, and also by using what I'm going through, whether it's the good or the bad, and have a better outcome. So having more positivity.
I'm gonna honor my grandma by doing like the best I can and like helping people more. And then I'm going to like, I'm not gonna like focus on the past anymore. I'm just gonna like focus on my future. And like me and her had a lot in common, so I'm gonna like do stuff that she did, like how she did cosmetology and stuff.
I'm gonna honor my grandma by doing the best I can and helping people if possible or if I'm able. Maybe I'll be a student for the rest of my life like her too, just get a bunch of degrees. Like, I don't know yet.
I'm going to honor my grandmother by also moving forward and forgetting about the past and also singing more. Like the same amount of singing she did. She sang a lot.
Okay, I'm going to honor her by going to school, being a nurse, because that's what she wanted me to do, and helping people.
I'm going to honor my mother by just continuing her legacy as far as with my own children, being the best mother that I can be, and just to continue to follow in her footsteps. And like you said, she did set a good example as far as letting the past stay in the past and to move forward and to worry about, don't knock myself or anyone else down for things in the past. Just continue to push forward and just know that the more I push, everything's going to fall into place at some point. That, like she said, God has a plan for all of our lives.
Sometimes it's hard to pray. Sometimes it's hard to stay grateful. It's painful. It hurts so bad. Sometimes it's hard to breathe. It gets hard to keep going. We keep holding on to what could have been. So we'll get by. We'll see the light. In the morning it's gonna be alright. Circumstance is in the plan. Even if we don't fully understand why the bad things happen to the good people.
So much pain. It's still a lesson. Sometimes it rains. It's still a blessing. You never see the silver lining in the clouds, and so you doubt it. You never know how much you truly have until you go without it. One day it's gonna turn into another season. You're gonna see that all the tragedy you had was for another reason. It's just a temporary goodbye. So you gotta keep your head high. The rain is coming down and it's pouring, but joy is gonna come inside the morning.
We'll get by. We'll see the light. In the morning it's gonna be alright. The circumstance, it's in the plan. Even if we don't fully understand why the bad things happen to the good people.
Woo! Oh yeah. This is dedicated to my grandpa and grandma, Joann and Joann Gilliam.
And this is dedicated to my grandfather, William Robert.